All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this complexity casting presentation, concluding our HoN Tour Cycle 1 coverage. With the Bronze Grand Finals, we have Clan Jok taking on DonD, aka DoberOnDamp here. We already see that namesake hero in the lock pool up there, but let's go ahead and get on into it. I mean, this is, of course, the last match in the Bronze US Finals. These teams are fighting for not only the $300 first place prize here, but also some points toward the HoN Tour Grand Finals, should they actually be advancing all the way up into the gold and diamond divisions, where they might become a contender for that 4th through 11th slot that will fight out in a single elimination 8-man tournament for the last slot in the HoN Tour qualifiers at an undisclosed location. But let's get on to this game, guys. We already have the bans coming out. We do have Legion banning Ophelia and Tundra. Hellborne's going to ban Ophelia and keep her the Forest, so neither team wants Ophelia to get into that to get into the pool here. Both teams choosing to ban that out. Tundra, of course, being banned as well, and Keeper of the Forest being banned over here. His jungle prowess, his suicide prowess, the scheduled match has expired prowess. No. But he is, of course, an amazing suicide hero that people just do not like seeing. And for those of you who are maybe a little bit less familiar with these teams, I'm not too familiar with either of them in their team capacity. But outside of that, as individual players, I've played with or against a lot of these players. These are, of course, mid-1800s to low 1900 type players. So you might be saying, oh, Beef, how the heck are these 18 and 1900 players in the bronze division? Well, a lot of the people did have to forfeit some of their games in the qualifiers. They weren't able to get there in time. They weren't able to field their 5 players. And so some of the very skilled teams that are probably going to end up in silver, gold, maybe even press on further, well, they're in the bronze for the first season. They're going to have to climb their way out. Both of these teams have already qualified for silver, so you'll be seeing them in that bracket in the future. But for right now, they're going to battle out for champion of bronze. Let's get into the lock phase. First lock coming out of Marty McFly here for Jok is in fact going to be Midas. So here that we've been seeing slightly more lately, picked up for his great stun and his anti-push, as well as the escape mechanism and general tanky nature as casters go. He's pretty damn tanky, being a strength hero. So a lot of people like to pick him up for that solo side lane and for that position where he's going to be playing that suicide. And of course the anti-push in the metagame that's kind of going back toward push is very nice. Suicide's coming out now in the form of Bubbles and Plague Rider, both picked up by Porch of the Hellborne team. And Wild Soul is even going to make his way through as well. 3 great suicide heroes. Wild Soul with his ability to push the lane back utilizing his bear. And of course we have Plague Rider utilizing the Extinguish ability to pull the lane back. Bubbles, just an all-around great suicide with a fantastic escape mechanism, and later game great initiation and ganking ability. Martyr and Damp here rounded out for the lock pick. Both heroes that we don't see very often. I'd be extremely excited to see either of these heroes. Damp here we see a little bit more frequently than Martyr, and over on the right side of your screen you'll see DonD. That stands for DoberOnDamp. So Doberman, he very well could be playing that Damp here. We'll see. Well, let's get on into the the banning phase just really quickly. Zephyr, Draconis, Torture, Dark Lady, and Silhouette Fade all being banned out. So 4 carries and 2 stunner gankers in the form of Torture or Fade being banned out. A lot of carries being banned with yeah, all those being removed from the pool. But let's get through the picks real quick here, guys, because they have blown through this picking stage. We have Parasite being first picked, countered by Tempest Bubbles. Back to the other side, the last 2 picks for the Legion team are in fact going to be Pharaoh and Devourer. So we're going to see Devourer, and we're going to see some other cool heroes as well. Back to the other side, as the final pick is going to be Aluna for the Hellborne team, rounding out their standard pick. Into the lock-picking phase, Wild Soul going to be first picked for the Legion side. Dampier Bubbles comes out as a response from the Hellborne, and they finish it off with Martyr. So there are your teams, guys. Let's go ahead and get this overlay changed up real quick. And let's go over it, because I know you might not be familiar with these names, and I'm not as familiar with these names. So let's recite them one time real quick. Marty McFly playing for Jok. He's going to be playing the Parasite, going to the short lane jungle so far. Yeti doing his suicide thing on Wild Soul, taking Boo Boo with him to the top lane. Looks like Pharaoh will probably be going mid. That's being played by YKX. I'm going to have a hard time saying that name, YKX. Tim Tebow in the bottom lane playing the Martyr. And, of course, he's with Promotion on the Devourer. So we'll see if there are some pretty cool hooks coming out in that bottom lane. The Devo Martyr lane. Or it could be Pharaoh. They could be putting Pharaoh down there and then Martyr Devo in the middle lane, of course. But either of those two will likely work. On the other side of things, playing for Excuse me, what's the full name here? DoberOnDamp. DoberOnDamp, not DoberOnDamp. But YOLO playing the Bubbles in the suicide lane in the middle. We do, of course, have the namesake himself, Doberman. He's playing Damp here, being babysat by a Pebbles. Just kidding. The Machine playing that one right now. Oh, man. Okay, no, what? This is weird. So Pebbles or Dampier is going to be soloing. I would say of the two, Dampier probably has the better shot at soloing against a two-man lane. But anyway, Porch is going top on the Aluna. The Machine on Pebbles, I would expect him to go up there as well. And gets carried here on Tempest. Will be doing his jungle thing. Hopefully coming out and doing a little bit of ganking as well. Aluna, Pebbles, as well as Tempest. They should be able to get some pretty effective ganks on that Wild Soul. Although, if Wild Soul plays it effectively, he's going to be pushed way back here, and this is going to be the area that he's farming in. And then, of course, for a Tempest to come through here and then into the gank, or up this river and then try to gank on the high ground right here, Wild Soul should have a pretty good time at actually keeping the lane back, being safe. So, we'll see once the laning phase gets going real quick. Guys, they are in a pause, so a little bit unfortunate to get that one started. Somebody was having some keybind problems, but looks like they're ready now as Bubbles is going to be hauling butt down into the bottom lane. Wants to make sure to put that ward down before things get too dicey in there, and he should be able to get there just a few seconds before Martyr, Devo, Parasite, and Pharaoh get there. Otherwise, Bubbles might be in a little bit of trouble if he used that Shell Surf and then was to get hit by the Cadaver Hook. Gutting Hook. Cadaver Hook. Cadaver Armor. Decay, Devour, Cadaver Armor, Gutting Hook.
Let's get it
Is it a Gutling Hook? Gutling Hook. I'm not seeing things right. Gutling Hook. Well, I'm going to call it the Gutling Hook from now on. Bubbles is not actually going to be able to get there in time as he's being chased around. He's going to run into Pharaoh, so he's going to have to drop the ward and then activate that Shell Surf very quickly. Will be able to escape. So good job from YOLO not to get caught out, because in this game, you only live once until you respawn about 2 seconds later if you die at level 1. Gutling Hook. That has to be a spelling error, right? Like that's not a thing. Gutling. It says it twice though. They're at the right here in the trade tip. It says it again. Whatever. Sorry guys. I'm trying to learn all the hero skill names and item names properly. And one of those is the Gutling Hook. Would normally just call that Hook and call the W Rot, but no. Gutling Hook, Decay, Cadaver Armor, and Devour. So there we go. Over here for Martyr, we of course have Retribution, Guardian Angel, Soul's Conviction, and Hand in Hand. Lots of new skills to learn. These ones are Terrorize, Vampiric Flight, Bloodthirst, and Consume. So a few heroes that we don't see too often. It is in fact going to be Martyr and Devo teaming up here in the middle lane. Going to be hanging out and trying to shut down this Dampier. Right now Martyr's taking a lot of harassment though. Might turn it around with Retribution, and so he shall. The power throw comes out, hitting a couple of players as well. And Devo Martyr is going to make their way top. Choosing to send the two-man lane up against the short man two-man lane of the Pebbles of Luna. I don't know how I feel about that one just yet. Wild Soul in the middle lane should have a pretty good time against this Dampier. And of course the top lane will have a better time against the Pebbles of Luna than solo Wild Soul might have. But I'm still, You don't see Wild Soul in the middle lane too often. When you do, he typically does very well. So, I don't know. It's all going to come down to how good the ganks are in this top lane, and if Devourer and Martyr are able to stay safe against this Pebbles of Luna and possibly aggressive roaming Tempest at some point. Martyr doing some more roaming as Tim Tebow is going around trying to get the wards down for his team, make sure that all the sight that they need is provided. As a result, though, he's only level 1, going to be camping the rune out as well. Devo going to get some additional levels because of the lack of lane partner, but also the harassment that's going to be coming out is going to be much more minimal as a result of that Martyr missing from the lane. Another power throw going to come out. Hits Devo, but with already 777 life at level 3. He's very, very difficult to kill. Has a pretty damned large life pool, and it will only get larger once he starts to level up that Cadaver armor. Activating the Decay there to grab a last hit or two. The unfortunate part about that with Devourer is that every time he activates that, even if it only ticks for 1 second so that he can get that last hit, it does push up the lane just a tiny bit. So you need to be careful with that. But he's doing a decent job right now. Middle lane Wild Soul actually taking a little bit of aggression as now the counter aggression going to be applied as the root is going to come out on the Dampier. A few auto attacks going to be exchanged in the middle lane after a Vampiric Flight, and what I assume was a terrorized. Yeah, the Vampiric Flight was on cooldown. Bottom lane Bubbles going up against Pharaoh. Now this is a lane that I would say that at least for the first few levels, Pharaoh should have an advantage down here. And especially once he's able to pick up something like a Life Tube, he should have an even greater advantage in this lane just because of his high attack damage and ability to get those creep kills. Now, right now he is at 10 and 4 as opposed to the 12 and 5 Bubbles. So YOLO doing a good job down here, making work happen. He's actually doing a very nice job of pushing Pharaoh back, and Pharaoh, even with that the shield, the stout shield, iron buckler, he's being forced back with quite a few auto attacks. Not choosing to spend his gold just yet as he's at 700, so I think he will be saving up for that Life Tube, possibly make his way toward a quick Helm of the Black Legion, which of course would make him nearly impervious to any kind of harassment coming out of Bubbles. Top lane, Martyr going to be in some trouble. She sends out the Retribution though, but not before, she's not going to get the kill onto Tempest before she gives up her own life. First Blood goes to Gets carried on that Tempest before he quickly dies. Promotion gets the counter kill on the Devo. So once again, that's a little bit unfortunate. Martyr was up there at level 3, but Tempest comes in for the gank. And a nice setup into a good kill. Trading 1 for 1. Not necessarily a bad move for either team. It's unfortunate that they did lose the Tempest. Losing something like the Aluna would have been more favorable for the Legion, or excuse me, for the Hellborne team. The Tempest could have gone back into the jungle and been farming during that time, whereas Aluna doesn't really do a whole lot if she's not going to be there. It's not a huge deficit by any means. I want to see Devo land some big hooks. I want to see some big hooks coming out. That would be nice to see. And will he go in? He does have that mana potion activated right now, regenerating some additional energy. And Possibly looking for that hook. He's trying to dodge around. The unfortunate part about Devo is to set up ganks, you have to stand back off of the creep wave. You're not always going to be able to get in there and get those last hits. Whereas a Pebbles can stand on top of the creep wave. Hasted Parasite, not hasted actually. He's in some trouble as the Stalagmites come in, the chunk, and the final auto attack as the Machine is able to get that one. He was not hasted, he had used the leech actually. Stole some movement speed from Tempest, but does end up falling. So a little bit unfortunate that he did walk by the enemy team. Now Devour might be in a little bit of trouble. The Elemental Void coming out. Martyr's going to be the first to drop, possibly. The Stalagmites go out, and now Devo's in some trouble. The Chuck is going to come in. The Glacial Blast to follow up, and the Machine picks up another kill. Porch grabs one as well, as the score is now 4-1 in favor of the Hellborne team. DonD looking strong compared to Jok in this early game. Bubbles utilizing that Shell Surf to try to put some additional harassment into Pharaoh. And I talked about Pharaoh being impervious here, but screw that. He's actually going to take a fall as Bubbles does an awesome job of pushing Pharaoh back, doing the harassment that is necessary, and then finishes it off with a Shell Surf, a Song of the Sea, and a Kelp Field. Fantastic job. Pharaoh just took a little bit too much harassment. Top lane, the hook does miss onto Pebbles as he is regenerating life, afforded to him by that health potion. The Retribution goes out onto Luna, but the slow not so strong as to let Devo catch up to him, even with his red boots. Damage done so far in this game, 23% on YOLO. He's done a very effective job so far. Terrorized Vampiric Flight going to be coming in. The Wrath of the Pharaoh counter, though. In comes the Maul of Mummies as the Hellfire is applied. But Tempest might be in a little bit of trouble. He will go down. Last hit goes to YKX. Bubbles is here now, though, and they're going to try to turn it around onto Wild Soul. The Shell Surf misses, but it still is enough as the Dampier comes in with the Terrorized Vampiric Flight. Parasite comes in for the attempted assist, but not able to turn around for any kills. More action up in the top lane as the Devo hook is going to be available relatively soon. No, he doesn't have enough mana, actually. Stalagmites coming out to try to save the escape path for the Hellborne team, and they are able to get out of there without taking any losses. Hellborne team now in a 4,000 gold lead and 3,000 experience lead. Make that 3,500 experience lead. Looking very good here at 8 minutes into the game. Up 6-2 in terms of hero kills. Effective roaming coming out of all of their players. Tempest, of course, making his way out of the jungle to help set up a couple of kills in that top lane. And Bubbles even made it through from the bottom lane toward mid to secure a kill onto that Wild Soul. Martyr taking some additional harassment. The Gutling hook comes out onto Pebbles. Not enough mana for the Devourer, but Devo just walks him down, utilizing that decay, and make that 2 charges now on the Cadaver armor as Devo's up to about 1,000 max HP. Pharaoh's in the bottom lane, trying to get something done here against Bubbles, but if we take a look, 183 gold per minute now on the Bubbles, as opposed to the 182, excuse me, on the Pharaoh, 182 gold per minute, as opposed to the nearly 320 gold per minute here of Bubbles. He is 2 levels higher than Pharaoh now, finished up with his Steam Boots, has the Ring of the Teacher, providing him the mana regen, the additional damage, and of course the armor. Bubbles looking extremely strong down here. YOLO doing a fantastic job against the Pharaoh in a lane where I said that Pharaoh should have a relatively good shot in those early levels, especially once he got that life tube. But Bubbles just continued to apply the harassment and was able to get a nice early kill, which has set Pharaoh back pretty dearly. He did actually turn around 1 kill there in the middle lane as he was able to bring down Tempest. But it still hasn't been enough to really get him back into the game as he's pretty far behind. Dampier picks up a double damage rune as well as an invis. The invis is activated for about 45 more seconds as Dampier wants to get something happening on the Wild Soul, but Wild Soul level 8 with 3 minor totems is at nearly 1,400 life. Bottom lane, Bubbles into trouble. Wrath of the Pharaoh going to come out, but a huge Shell Surf right there, and he is able to make it out. Bubbles activates the health potion. One TP comes in, but it is canceled. A huge play there by YOLO, making sure not to die. Wow, that was fantastic. Making sure to get out of that mummy wall just fast enough so that he didn't take one additional auto attack. Perfect play there by Bubbles. Luna's going to come in. The Shell Surf, the Kelp Field is activated. The Shell Surf to finish him off. Porch actually grabs that kill as he does get the power throw. Double damage Damp here trying to go on to Wild Soul. He will be forced to back off. Parasite's in the vicinity, so he might actually try to turn it around. Uses the mana burn from that creep. Top lane Devo being initiated on as the Glacial Blast come out. The Chuck is applied. Where are the Stalagmites? The Stalagmites come in with the power throw. Gonna catch two in the Elemental Void once again. And the Machine gets one. The Get Carried gets one. And off to 9-3. DonD looking good in this game. 6,500 gold and experience lead. Their key players are now off to a pretty large start here. Damp here looking good in the middle lane. Pebbles in the top lane, and of course Bubbles continuing to be the top farmer in that suicide lane. Not too often do you see that one, but when you've got a 2-0-1 Bubbles with 60 CS at 12 minutes, of course he's going to be looking pretty good. The Devourer pick in the top lane not really working out despite the Helm of the Black Legion that he has had finished for a short while now. He's still falling victim to the heavy stun and heavy damage output lineup that the Hellborne team is sporting here in the top lane. Tempest coming in with effective Glacial Blasts, setting up more stuns, and even getting a couple people in that Elemental Void 2 times in a row, each time resulting in a double tap. So a fantastic job. Luna tries to throw out the red throw. The Vampiric Flight comes in with the Terrorize. YOLO finishes it off with a Song of the Sea, as it looks like Yeti will fall in the middle lane. That's 2 deaths for him now, as Wild Soul, where I said he would have a relatively good time in that middle lane, not working out. Wrath of the Pharaoh connects onto Luna now. She's going to be trying to make her escape as there is no wall of mummies available, and she should be able to get out of there. The Vampiric Flight, as well as the Terrorize, the Consume to finish him off with the power throw assist. A nice Gutling hook there from Promotion as it connects with the Machine to bring home a kill for Devo. Make that 3 on the Cadaver Armor, as he does have 3 out of his 4 team kills. Yeti taking some harassment in the bottom lane as he's trying to get work done in the bottom lane, just trying to get the CS wherever he can, but already a portal key at 13 minutes to follow up on Steam Boots and the Ring of the Teacher here for Bubbles. YOLO looking strong, using that Shell Surf to do a little bit more harassment toward that Wild Soul, who has activated his ultimate form, the Bear form. Red Power Throw comes in from Porch, but not quite connecting. Wild Soul only at 845 life without Mystic Vestments. If one more person comes in the form of Dampier, then Bubbles should assuredly be able to get this kill. Wild Soul is teaming up with Pharaoh now over here on the side, and might be in a little bit of trouble as Dampier will spot that that was just pulled. Bubbles comes in. He's going to drop the Shell Surf. The Kelp Field not being used, and there it is. Wild Soul's going to go down. Parasite TP's in. He's turning his attention toward Luna. Being blocked by a creep, though. Soldier, you're in the wrong spot. Terrorize comes in, and down goes Parasite. He's going to take the fall. Devo's there for an attempted hook. The Gutling hook does miss as he's going to try to walk up and just devour Dampier. He does have the mana for it. Retribution goes out from Martyr, but it looks like the Legion team is going to have to retreat as the Hellborne does have quite a bit of support. Gets carried, does have his Elemental Void available to him. He has the mana and a portal key. Will he go in now? The Glacial Blast going to come out. The vision being provided. Down goes the trees with the Meteor, and down goes Tim Tebow. Kill scored now 14-4 with a 12,000 experience lead and an 11,000 gold lead here for the Hellborne team. Looking absolutely fantastic for them at 15 minutes into the game. And the Legion team, I mean, they are desperately far behind at this point, being outplayed on all fronts. The few kills that they've given up, the Hellborne team that is, they've been in exchange for kills on their more important heroes, but they've played it extremely well. Awesome roaming coming out of this Hellborne team, and we'll see how they choose to approach the rest of this game. If they're going to get relatively aggressive or if they'll play it passive. Don't want to throw away that first place prize. Yellow makes his way back to the bottom lane once again, perhaps to finish off the tower. Activate that ring. Activate that ring if you're going for a push. Not going to activate the ring just yet. The Ring of the Teacher, of course, does give that 3 armor aura. Wild Soul comes in. He's going to do a little bit of anti-pushing of his own, as he's going to try to land the root, but no first hit root onto Bubbles. Bubbles has, of course, picked up that Major Totem. Going to be working on a tab of the command. Increased mobility, the name of the game. Parasite goes in with the mana burn onto Damp here. Drive him off, saying, "Get the hell out of my jungle, guy." Martyr would have been in a very vulnerable position to die from that level 12 Damp here if Parasite had not been able to dissuade. Pebbles comes in. He's able to kill the courier. Not quite sure what the courier was doing there, but it was spotted out by this ward of the site. Pebbles, of course, showing off the brand new shiny portal key that he does have. Consume being applied onto a creep. That's what it sounded like, at least. No, that was actually the Terrorize that was being applied onto a creep. Insult to injury here for the Legion team as they do lose that courier. It's very unfortunate. They will, of course, have to send someone back to town at some point and drop the additional 400 gold to get an upgraded courier once more. In the bottom lane, 4 players are spread out as it looks like the Hellborne team does want to engage. 2 portal keys in this location, a third in the hands of Pebbles, who does have a homecoming stone as well. He will be able to teleport to that bottom lane if they look to engage, which they certainly shall. Dampier going to make contact with Martyr. Actually going to go in. Oh, a huge Elemental Void, catching 2 once again. Parasite comes in. I'm not sure if that was well advised. The Emerald Lightning hitting 2 players there. Dampier going to try to get in there as well. Glacial Blast being applied onto Devour. Power Throw goes out and whiffs. The Gutling Hook dodged by an excellent take cover. Down goes Pebbles, and down goes Parasite once more as the combo comes in from the Pebbles after that portal key. Vote to concede being put up by the Legion team. GG well played coming out as that should be passing up at 18 minutes in. We do have a 16,000 gold lead, 15,000 experience lead as the Hellborne team just looks brutally ahead at this point. Wild Soul continuing to try to make things happen here for his team as the vote to concede does not pass. He does manage to push down that top tower as Dampier picks up an Assassin's Shroud, going to lend itself nicely toward the increased ganks that hero does like to use. Bottom tower goes down. Make 2 for 1 is what the Hellborne team says in the bottom lane as they extend their gold lead back up to 16,000. Assassin's Shroud is delivered for Dampier. As more and more items are starting to come out for this team. Tabula Command, of course, finished on Bubbles, utilizing the portal key. Now he's going to get on top of that Wild Soul. Wants to use the Shell Surf, wants to kill the bear. Shell Surf, unfortunately, does miss after that Song of the Sea. They're going to try to turn it around. Wrath of the Pharaoh is going to come in. The Kelp Field being applied. Dampier is here, though, and he's going to utilize everything he's got. Shell Surf, Song of the Sea from Bubbles to finish him off. Down goes Pharaoh. There's another Shell Surf, hand in hand being applied by Martyr, but she's in some trouble as auto attacks are going to come out from Dampier. Martyr going to go down, utilizing that Vampiric Flight, Terrorize to keep them in place. Dampier manages to make that one happen. Devo comes up, but with only red boots, no portal key, he's not going to be able to get anywhere near the highly mobile Bubbles. The Slippery Turtle. Pebbles is going to come in. He's going to make contact with Devo. The Decay being applied as well as the Devourer. Pebbles might be in a little bit of trouble now. Push stick in from Bubbles. He's going to activate that Song of the Sea. The Stalagmites come out onto them as well. A Terrorized Vampiric Flight. Wild Soul's going to go down. Regen Rune does spawn, and Bubbles is going to be able to grab that one. It's a huge team fight once again for the Hellborne team. Call to concede goes up, and it passes immediately this time as Bubbles was manning up. I have never seen such man-ups out of a Bubbles as a... That was a stomp. That 20 minutes in, 21,000 gold and experience. Like, that was pretty stompy, guys. We're going to go on into game 2, though, and see if Jok can do one better, or if DonD will take this in a very quick 2-0 sweep. Guys, we're going to go check that one out. It's Complexity Casting with your casting host, Beef. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.